Though I expected it, its audacity still amazes me. Maybe it's my hubris. Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen were Hollywood aristocracy. Global audiences are captivated by their classic love story. Their fast romance and wonderful marriage seemed fairy tale. MacGraw admits in a surprising new interview that their reality was far from beautiful. The evil side of McQueen and her experiences during their turbulent marriage are revealed. The actress's abuse and infidelity stories clash with their public image. MacGraw survived the devastating disclosures and heartbreaking divorce. Discover the secret story of one of Hollywood's most famous couples' early lives and passionate meeting. Steve McQueen and Ali MacGraw's love tale would captivate the world. As they lived, their paths crossed from the shadowy streets of a troubled upbringing to Hollywood stardom. McQueen's upbringing was marked by a restless need for belonging as he negotiated a world that seemed oblivious to his troubles. McQueen was born to an alcoholic young mother. MacGraw was raised in Greenwich Village by her pioneering mother and clever but troubled father, who instilled in her a love of adventure and the unusual. Beginning with small parts in theater and TV, McQueen became famous. His breakthrough performance in Wanted Dead or Alive made him a household name. Hollywood was drawn to McQueen's charisma and rebellion. MacGraw, on the other hand, began a journey of self-discovery from Wellesley College to fashion. Due to her inherent beauty and excellent sense of style, Diana Vreeland noticed her in fashion. While McQueen became a Hollywood icon with films like The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, and The Groundbreaking Bullet, MacGraw's star rose as she appeared in Vogue and worked as a photographer's stylist. Both MacGraw and McQueen rose to fame. She was won over by the silver screen. She debuted in television advertising and broke through in Goodbye Columbus, which launched her career. McQueen continued to push himself as an actor, earning critical praise and a reputation as one of Hollywood's most sought-after leading men. MacGraw's performance as the ill-fated Jenny in Love Story made her a household name, earning her an Academy Award and Golden Globe nomination. MacGraw's star was rising with only 3 flicks. She was featured on Time's cover and invited to decorate Grauman's Chinese Theater. Starring opposite each other in The Getaway, their paths crossed during this successful moment. Finally, they would meet. On The Getaway, Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen's eyes lit up like a spark. This interaction set up a Hollywood-famous love story. It was clear they had energy together, and their off-screen romance blossomed when they started filming in Texas. Even though MacGraw was initially hesitant to accept the job, MacGraw fell in love with McQueen's charisma and energy, even though she was married to producer Robert Evans. In her story, she admitted that she was smitten with Steve from the moment he entered my world. She felt that there was never enough oxygen to breathe and no time to change their inevitable entanglement due to their intense connection. As their affair intensified, MacGraw and McQueen realized they wanted to be together in film and behind the camera. However, they faced obstacles on their path to happiness. Since 1956, McQueen had been married to his first wife, Neil Adams, for 10 years. It was hard, but their love was too strong to refuse, so they left their partners. MacGraw and McQueen knew they had to make tough decisions to really accept their relationship. Despite his defiance and love of racing cars and motorcycles, McQueen had to face his tumultuous personal life. MacGraw faced the problems of ending her marriage to Evans, with whom she had a son. Despite challenges, their love triumphed. McQueen divorced Adams in 1972, allowing him and MacGraw to start a new romance. The Getaway's popularity was already being compared to Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton's Cleopatra romance. Their affair had already boosted The Getaway's popularity. In Hollywood, their love story was discussed as they prepared to marry, an unsuccessful marriage. The world seemed to hold its breath as Ali MacGraw and Steve McQueen approached the altar to make their vows. Since their connection on The Getaway had blossomed into a lifelong love, they were ready to make their romance official. Disaster was already brewing as they pledged their hearts to each other. McQueen required MacGraw to sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding to retain his dominance. MacGraw had signed the paper without thinking. Even though it showed his trust issues and need for control, he devoted himself to the romance. It was impossible for her to have known how much she would regret that choice. Soon their relationship defects were evident. McQueen, wounded by his past, had trouble trusting women. His father abandoning him and his mother sending him to a troubled adolescent school made an unforgettable mark on him. His prior scars will shape his marriage to MacGraw. McQueen's possessiveness and jealousy, which had once shown his passion, now seemed like suffocation. Despite MacGraw's fame, he couldn't handle her leaving the house to work. MacGraw, the obedient wife, stayed home to raise their sons. He suggested she quit, and she did. However, MacGraw felt stifled by McQueen's dominance, even though she had sacrificed her personal objectives for their marriage. Even though he was always looking away from her, he would explode if he saw her gaze at another man. McQueen found his wife during a picture shoot, suggesting he was more concerned with her suspected misbehavior. He was also accused of infidelity. He became unpredictable and nasty, believing it was a cover for an affair with another lady. During his days-long disappearances, he used drugs and drank and had shady affairs with prostitutes and groupies. He openly exposed his infidelity to MacGraw, as if daring her to leave him. The emotional abuse quickly turned into physical violence, and McQueen interrogated MacGraw like he had his first wife. His paranoia and jealousy drove him to probe her for hours about her infidelity. He kept going until he discovered. He would lash out when she denied guilt, leaving her bruised and disfigured. MacGraw believed she could change him, and that her love could heal his past wounds despite everything. However, she eventually realized her attempts were fruitless. McQueen's own issues prevented him from loving well. Miscarriage was the final straw for MacGraw. The loss was terrible, but McQueen's reaction was worse. He showed only cold indifference, breaking MacGraw's heart. He showed no mercy. MacGraw faced a fork in the road as their relationship fractured. Her fame and finances plummeted after a 5-year marriage. When her manager contacted, she knew she had to accept the convoy job. After she informed McQueen, he reacted quickly and harshly, insisted on divorce. The divorce was one of MacGraw's hardest challenges. For McQueen, she sacrificed all: her career, autonomy, and identity. She was left with nothing. It appears that the prenuptial agreement she eagerly signed was a cruel hoax. The memory of her naivete that had led her to sacrifice so much for a man who could not love her properly. MacGraw had to confront the awful consequences of her mistakes as she tried to rebuild her life. She was broke, jobless, and alone. She was struggling with self-doubt. Even in her worst moments, she could not feel remorse for her love for McQueen. The adventure had been so wild and dramatic that it had brought great joy and heartbreaking anguish. MacGraw saw the warning signs she had missed during her romance with her husband when she looked back on their marriage. McQueen's problems lurked beneath his charming exterior from the start. However, she was so involved in their love that she missed the establishment's cracks. MacGraw was determined to rebuild her life according to her own ideals after their divorce. She would never again let others' desires rule her life. She knew that the lessons she learned from McQueen would change her life, even though her scars would never heal. We'll proceed. Ali MacGraw faced a decision after her rocky marriage to Steve McQueen. He was her longtime husband. His quick rise had been mythical, but suddenly the Hollywood star was lost, her career and personal life in tatters. Her ascension began in folklore. MacGraw battled addiction for years. She used alcohol and failed relationships to cope with her failed marriages and harsh acting critiques. She realized something needed to change at her lowest point. MacGraw decided to face her addictions head-on and checked into the Betty Ford Clinic. Despite its horror, it changed one's life. MacGraw began to understand her displeasure via extensive treatment and self-reflection. She realized that she had been seeking external validation rather than internal one. MacGraw became a new person after recovery with this self-awareness. She left Hollywood to find calm in New Mexico's tranquility. In the desert's beauty, she found the tranquility and purpose she had been seeking. As MacGraw settled into her new life, she rediscovered her passions. She championed animal welfare and became an ambassador by highlighting neglected and abandoned pets. She started writing and produced a deeply intimate autobiography about her exceptional life's trials and triumphs. MacGraw never forgot the important lessons she learned from her traumatic upbringing. She realized that the only source of true happiness was within oneself, and that accepting oneself in its truest form was the key to a meaningful existence. MacGraw became depressed and regretful as she thought about her marriage to McQueen. She wishes they could have spent their golden years together and found the love and companionship they had missed when they were younger. Even though she was lamenting what could have been, MacGraw moved on. She had fought too hard and gone too far to let her past haunt her. Instead, she focused on her newfound happiness and satisfaction in New Mexico. What happened to McQueen? Steve McQueen had a decision after his rocky marriage to Ali MacGraw. He was unsure of his path. The king of cool, whose rugged good looks and rebellious spirit had made him a Hollywood celebrity, was now a man adrift, searching for meaning in a life of incredible highs and terrible lows. In the years after his divorce, McQueen experienced several unexpected events. After leaving Hollywood, he remained one of the most famous performers, making huge earnings and garnering devoted fans. Despite appearing in The Towering Inferno and Tom Horn, his zest for performing seems to have waned. Instead, he found comfort in motorsports, his second passion. McQueen, a speed demon and risk-taker, quickly jumped into racing, competing in the 12 Hours of Sebring and the Baja 1000. He lived dangerously. Despite his best efforts on the track, he couldn't outrun his demons. McQueen struggled with substance abuse and instability outside the spotlight. His lifelong obsession with fast cars, gorgeous women, and massive amounts of drugs and alcohol showed his excess. In his senior years, these behaviors began to harm his health. He developed a persistent cough, shortness of breath, and other significant symptoms. He was also struggling to accept the implications of his failed marriage to MacGraw, which had begun as a fairy tale but ended in bitter recriminations and wounded feelings. McQueen initially ignored these warning signs of his addictions by immersing himself in his work and interests with the same enthusiasm he often displays. His illness worsened, so he could no longer refute the truth. A crippling sickness plagued him. McQueen was diagnosed with pleural mesothelioma in 1979, a rare and deadly illness linked to asbestos exposure. Despite the heartbreaking news, McQueen vowed to fight the illness. His unconventional treatments in Mexico included coffee enemas, shampooing, and daily injections of cow and sheep cells. All treatments were given to him. Latrial, a controversial cancer treatment, was also used. Despite his best efforts, McQueen's condition worsened. The November 1980 operation to remove a big tumor from his belly was too much for his fragile heart. A few hours after surgery, he died of a heart attack. Hollywood and beyond were shaken by McQueen's death. Supporters worldwide mourned the death of the person who epitomized cool, machismo, and resistance. MacGraw was distressed by the news. She never stopped loving McQueen, and the thought of him leaving was almost unbearable. She loved him even after their marriage failed. However, as the world mourned Steve McQueen, a more negative image emerged. The rugged good looks and obvious charisma that had enthralled audiences for decades hid a wounded soul whose demons had laid waste to it. This spirit captivated audiences for decades. In the years after his death, stories of McQueen's chaotic personal life painted a grim picture of a skilled but abusive man. McQueen acted well. These stories focused on his wife and lovers, who were drawn in by his seductive personality, but ended up in a nightmare of jealousy, manipulation, and violence. His magnetic presence attracted these women. McQueen's first wife and mother of two, Neely Adams, was an example. Adams was seduced by the young actor's defiance and smoldering intensity, but as their marriage progressed, she felt his possessiveness smothering her. McQueen wanted his wife's entire loyalty, despite his many affairs. However, the physical aggression surprised many who knew the pair. McQueen allegedly held a gun to Adams' head and threatened to shoot her if she didn't confess to an affair he suspected. This episode was terrifying. Despite being untrue, the story revealed McQueen's paranoia and his willingness to dominate his loved ones. The claims regarding McQueen's mistreatment of women created a new image of the actor that contrasted with his heroic portrayal. The actor's new image came from mistreating women. A distraught and dangerous man stood before us. He ruined hearts and destroyed lives. He was a ticking time bomb, whose explosive temper and insecurities had created havoc. Despite the revelations about McQueen's darker side, others still loved his mythology. However, the truth was more complicated for the women he hurt. It was a sad reminder of the price they paid for loving a wounded but bright man. However, McQueen's legacy has grown since his death. American cinema still reveres him as a symbol of a generation's rugged individualism and defiance. As fresh generations discover the king of cool's eternal chill, his influence may be seen in fashion and film. The video's major topic is now. We hope it piqued your interest and opened your eyes. Remember, each narrative deepens our comprehension of the world. Who knew Hollywood's golden age had so many secrets? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking material.